Hello and welcome back to another episode with us gorgeous beings here. We have just discussed before that the topic we both feel really, really excited to talk about is the empowerment of the feminine. And you got that here with two feminine sitting here looking really good, I would say, which I think I will tie into later as well, why that is an important piece for me. So I've come up with the topic because I did a very big meditation yesterday where I started listening into my body, my higher self, my soul. What does actually want to land right now in my life? And I had this beautiful vision coming in about starting like little hubs all over the world where we women will gather together in gatherings, and it's going to be the empowerment of the feminine. It's like the rise of the feminine. So we will come together no matter what we are. And I really feel this tying in of all aspects of the feminine will have space there. And we learn about the others because sometimes, yes, I have certain parts within me that feel stronger and others less. So it's like we learn from each other through being in each other's proximity. So therefore, I'm like, okay, this is actually feels like the next step that where my work is gonna go. And I think it's gonna tie in with a lot of my offers. So that's why I'm really excited to share this vision with you, and directly after receiving this vision already going into sharing more, how does that actually all tie together? Like, why is it important? And I know, Desi, you have a lot to say there. What is your opinion on why is it important that we actually work on this empowerment of the feminine piece?
Okay, so the first thing that comes to me is a lot of what I have, read up on, and when the old ways turned into what has been propagated after certain political parties in history that have turned certain concepts into information that they could use to control the masses. When monotheism became a thing and paganism was flushed out, there was an unbalance. An imbalance became very evident, and the divine feminine was dethroned. It doesn't matter what text you look at. If you look at it historically, all of the previous texts, they include a feminine counterpart to the divine masculine. So God has Sophia. She's actually described as one of his angels, but she is the representation of consciousness. You have Yahweh, whose counterpart was Asera, for example. And so after going into monotheism and starting to preach that it is the masculine energy that comes out on top, that is the one that is most prominent, the one that should be revered. These energies were then I believe it's in the scriptures of the Hebrew teachings that those who would go to the Asherim, which is where Asherah would be venerated, were actually doing something bad, or they were going against God, if that makes sense. So obviously for me, the importance of coming into that feminine empowerment comes from just reclaiming our throne next to the divine masculine. I know we've spoken about this a lot, especially like when I tell you about how I want to, or how I direct my business, or what I've been going through, right, even within myself. There's been a lot of this feminine empowerment, this feminism, this word that we use. In Spanish, there's actually two different distinctions. So you've got feminismo and embodismo. And so the basic difference is that feminism is looking for that balance that I was just speaking to, sorry. And however, embrismo is kind of looking for that vengeance to come on top now of that masculine. And so I believe that obviously the importance of coming into this is finding our balance again, because it's all about coming back into union. I love that you started talking about your vision, because you know that a few weeks ago I had a wonderful vision where I saw that the I am essence or source is actually an androgynous being. It's an androgynous energy. And then it was polarized into masculine, feminine. The first creation that it created was that polarization. And it didn't put one on top of the other. It actually made them exactly equal. And so yeah, it's about coming back into that union within ourselves, our inner polarities, coming more into union on the external also. And this is actually essentially going to bring us further into union with source itself, with our souls. Our souls are also androgynous. So I believe that it's the empowerment of the feminine actually brings more balance and empowerment to the self, if that makes sense.
For sure, makes so much sense. And for me, what came up there was this is important to do it on all levels, right? We need to do it within ourselves, but also society as a whole needs to do that. And that in turn will change something in the collective. And that in turn will bring more peace and harmony and balance into this world, which is basically what we both, or what I personally work towards. And I think you most likely too. So it's this that is important. And I think in that, I think that's really beautiful that you spoke about these two parts. In that, we have a little bit of both what is needed. And I think there are certain people who are really feeling the call to go a bit in with more resistance and a bit more refined. And there are certain people like both you and me, we're actually doing it. I feel like I'm more the peaceful warrior, right? And my peaceful warriorism, I just created a new word there, is that I just go into this peaceful resistance through my being, simply through the way I exist, how I live my life, how I speak, how I'm choosing not to silence myself, how I speak my truth. This is my resistance. And I think that's really important because I don't think there is a lot of examples about that. I mean, there is examples of a lot of women doing it, but it's not spoken about that this is actually what we're doing. So if we're not speaking about that this is what we're doing, we are actually not showing the whole truth. Yeah, if that makes sense. I also confuse myself there right now, but it does make sense. So it is important that this is shown, that this is like, hey, there's also another way, because I think there's like what I see, there's like thousands upon thousands of women that would feel more resonant with that. So I think there is a way of showing it. Hey, this is another way. And this for me feels more the empowering way of like, ooh, lifting up, like you say, and like the scale is becoming even again. It doesn't need to go into like complete. The scale doesn't like that. We've got a Libra here. The scale doesn't like that.
For sure, for sure. It's like I feel like we've become pendulums. We've gone from I think it's very subconscious what you're saying. What you're saying is it resonates with me 100%, and it's come to me especially after having left a substantial amount of money in other containers where it was about the divine feminine rising, it was very focused on the divine feminine, and there was nothing about the divine masculine and coming into a healing and balanced place with it. And so very subconsciously, I felt like I had become a pendulum from going to that very subconscious belief and programming and operative system where everything is based in the masculine. I went all the way to the opposite end, and I wanted to be based in my feminine. And so without realizing, internally and very subconsciously, I was even scaring off my inner divine masculine. And like you said, this isn't something that's taught because I believe that it's so new. Just like I was saying a few weeks ago, it's so new for us to recognize that emotionality is okay, to recognize that feeling is okay, because this is very feminine. This is just why I'm tying it in here. This is more about the inner feminine aspect of ourselves, right? Of being okay with that, of embracing that part of ourselves. So I feel like, do you know, I just lost what I was going to say because I went too far into explaining what I was saying. Um, Jen, what was I saying? Help me out here because it was very relevant.
Maybe I just continue talking and then you feel into it. And then once it pops up, you just raise your finger and it will come back. But yeah, for sure. You were talking a lot about the divinity, like losing your own divine masculine and divine feminine, like this counterparts within yourself. You got it?
Sorry, I did. Just as important as it is to come back into that feeling and that recognition of the self, coming back into that inner balance, right? Coming into that into that it's okay to feel all these things. We haven't actually, it's very new, right? So we haven't actually learnt sufficiently yet how to introduce this feminine empowerment without dethroning the masculine. That's what I was saying. I was saying that I've spent personally a lot of money on my journey into this feminine empowerment and the rising of the divine feminine within, and then bringing it to the external. And yet none of these courses that I've done have actually given space to that masculine. So yeah, that's why I thought it was very prominent to say that. I knew it was very important to get out there, because yeah, that is where my business, for example, does go. It's based on that divine union. It's based on the inner divine union. I think I went that way just because of the things that I've experienced on my path and purpose, right?
Yeah, I love it. I love it because for me, it's like I'm not here and we're not here to create hate or say something is not allowed to be, but it's like bringing in this new, which creates like just a ripple effect by itself. And then through that, a lot of like change is going to happen. And for me, that really landed once more of like why it is important to empower the feminine. I actually yesterday in an Uber drive home, I had a good conversation with a girl, and now I forgot what I wanted to say, but it was about this piece that we don't need to fight. We don't need to fight. Like the fight is not gonna bring anything. Like it's simply through the sheer act of doing. And I think that's the empowerment. Yes, now I remember again. We spoke about, and I know we're speaking a lot about duality here, but if we just put groups there and we talk about the masculine actually needs to learn right now. They need to learn a lot of things. And the feminine, it needs to be empowered because the feminine has chosen to do a lot of learning in the last few years. So we need to be empowered. So this for me creates the balance again, because the masculine has been empowered in the last hundreds of years so much that right now they need to learn that actually their power is not rightfully theirs. And also that they just claim the power, but actually don't understand anything that's going on. So
I was going to say, how about we put a spin on that? How about we all learn that there is more power in the balance and the interconnectedness and the interrelation than more for one than more the other? And I think that that's a lot of what they need to unlearn before they can learn the next part. Does that make sense?
exactly, it's this thing of like, this will create balance. But it's not about empowering the masculine. Certain, yes, but it's like this creates a balance, this learning piece. So therefore, I'm just trying to justify why I think it's important to empower the feminine. It's like, why do I even need to justify it? It is just the case. But still, at the same time, I think it's important to also bring a bit of like twists and turns and like different opinions and angles to it. And definitely, I think, yeah, I got lost again, but I definitely think it's super important.
It is. And I think I'm just going to go back for a second to what I was saying. I think that it's because of the way you were mentioning, you know, for thousands of years, hundreds, thousands of years, there's been that imbalance, and basing the fact that we all need to unlearn that. It's not just the masculine that needs to unlearn that, because I believe that it's from there that actually there is this rage within the feminine. You know, we're all here. It's not just that we are living it through our incarnations. We're also, because yes, our current manifestations of the self, we are living in a time where wherever you look, it can look quite dangerous for the feminine. It can still look very unfair and very imbalanced for the feminine. And right now is actually the moment where that empowerment is coming through. But I believe that there is a slight readjustment that needs to be made, where we're still kind of projecting onto and I'm not saying that you're necessarily projecting that it's just the masculine, because I know that you're a very balanced being, you're very grounded, and I think that this is why you and I have come to this conclusion, because we're very grounded about what we do, how we think, how we process things, and so this is what I believe that actually leads you and I So, I mean, because right now it's just you and I on the call. I believe there's many feminines that are probably going through this too. But the fact that we're so grounded, we can actually see things for what they are, and we can give a very broad perspective spin to things. So what I've observed is that it's not just something that the masculines need to unlearn, it's something that we all need to unlearn, because we do carry that generational trauma, that ancestral trauma, that lineage stuff that we have within us. And so I believe that there's so many different factors to how right now we're actually navigating this energy as a collective. If instead of actually, feeling all this anger and continuing to project it, we just feel it to release it, I feel that the quicker we're actually going to come into this balance. And there needs to be, or let's choose words carefully, because that's just my opinion. There doesn't need to be, but I think that ideally we would benefit more from these balanced teachings. While yes, the divine feminine rising containers are very important, I believe that there is that piece missing. Of also empowering our own inner masculine, because if we can empower our own inner masculine, we can actually provide that safety for ourselves. We create a container within ourselves where our feminine does feel empowered. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think that's a piece within ourselves that is very important. And I think I was speaking about a piece outside of ourselves. So, but everything ties in back together, and it's just completely the same thing. What I was just, while I heard you speak and I listened back to what I have been saying, thought was very interesting. What is my take on empowering the feminine? And I would also like to hear what's your take on, because I think we have a lot of similarities and also some things that are different, but they also tie in together. So my way of empowering the feminine, that rings true right now, and it might be different in a few months and change again and has a new twist. But my way of empowering the feminine is like empowering them to be exactly who you are. This thing of like, no matter how you dress, no matter how much makeup or a little makeup you want to wear, no matter how you act or behave, no matter what you feel, you are fucking powerful. And I think that is really, really, really important for me, because I see everywhere I look, in my friends group, in the women walking around, we all struggle and still judge, and we're still like diminish ourselves before actually others are doing, we are doing it. We're still, so many of us still struggle with our body weight, with our hair is not the right color. My clothes don't fit. Oh, I'm not fancy enough. I'm too fancy. It's always like this. So it's this, no matter who you are, like your authentic expression is really powerful, like empowering that. That is where I see my path. And in the expression for me, like the authentic expression is our voice. Super important. Can we speak and show up and say what we want? I recently had a client, and she shared with me that because we started working a lot on her feeling empowered as a woman, she told me that she was in a work meeting and she just spoke up about having an idea how it could actually be done. And she's a very shy, or used to be very shy girl that was always holding herself back, very much in the maiden energy. And suddenly everyone turned towards her and they were like, whoa, where is that coming from? And she's like, yeah, I actually always had really good ideas, but I was too shy to share it. So for me, it's that. She's a super smart woman that looks very soft and gentle. So people don't automatically think she has anything to say. So it's also changing the perception in a society of what we think a woman needs to look when she has to say something. And there, I think that resonates a lot with you. I don't think we need to dress in a certain way to be seen as business leaders. Like, we both have our own business. Yes, exactly. We're leading our business and we decide to sit here in like gorgeous clothes, and that I want to change that perspective, because I still see in a lot of like what are they called? Like in serious business places, women need to dress in a certain way to be considered powerful. And I really want to work on that, because I'm like, that's not. If it's truly your own truth and it resonates with you, then for sure do it. But I'm sure a lot of us are actually following what we think a business leader looks like. So it's not our truth. And what if you take that away and it's like, whew, like really changing the paradigm of like what someone needs to look or act or say or be. I think that's the biggest resistance, in my opinion. Just by simply through being and being a role model and showing that it can be done different for me is like, that's where I want to see. That's where I want to see the change happening.
Yeah, definitely. As you've been speaking, I've been hearing a lot of different things that tie in a lot with what I do, right? So first of all, you're talking about we judge ourselves. I'm not thin enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. It goes back to our worthiness wounds. Our worthiness wounds are based on lineage, again, like I said, ancestral. It's also based on what we've learned in this in the current paradigm that we're living in, where there's a beauty standard by society. And so we try to uphold ourselves to that. Then there's also a standard in society of how business is done. And it's been created on a masculine based foundation. The masculine, the recognition of power that we have right now is based in the masculine. It's based in, well, it's based in a lot of different things. Obviously, when we think of power, we think of somebody that dresses a certain way, that has a certain amount of money in their bank, that has a certain. The thing is, we're all powerful and limitless. But because we've had these examples to model ourselves on, especially for us, you know, you and I, we've been restructuring our businesses lately, and we've been trying to figure out how do we do this in a way that fits with us better, that sits well with our souls. And because we're both very in our feminine, we have been kind of oscillating between from what's the way that we've been doing it and how can we do it better that fits better for us right now. And so I've been sitting with that for a while. And you know that I've also put myself through another container recently, where what I've been learning is that there is a feminine way to relate to your business. And yet, again, it comes back to that balance. You want, for example, for our feminine to flow, right? For our feminine to flow, we need time to be however we want to be, to do whatever we want to do, to sit and meditate one day, to sit and channel another day, to receive, to magnetize our soul clients, etc., etc. But for that, for us to be able to show up in a feminine way in our businesses, it doesn't mean that we can't not embody the masculine in a certain way. We actually do need to. The container for our business needs to be a masculine setup for us to actually be able to sit in that feminine. So again, I'm just taking myself back to, I'm just bringing in more examples of why not only feminine empowerment is necessary, but why the balance is necessary for that feminine empowerment. To be able to wake up in the morning and put on whatever jewelry you want, to, like you said, put on more or less makeup, to wear whatever the heck you want, and to still show up in your business and be taken seriously. This is something that is also very new, something that we're going to be navigating for a little while, but something that I do believe that we're going to achieve, and that we can share more and more and empower more women to do the same. We don't want to have to hustle in this projected, programmed masculine way. But yeah, just as you were saying, that's basically what was coming to me. It's because we've been living in a male dominated world. So yeah, that feminine empowerment, again, super necessary. Just bringing it more to light.
So what is your way of empowering the feminine then?
Well, I mean, in my business, for example, I go through a lot of the different wounds because the feminine energy does have a lot of the witch wound. We've been ostracized, we've been persecuted for having our gifts. You know, generally the feminine, I'm going to talk to the energy, but generally the feminine energy predominantly is the one that is more spiritually or consciously inclined, if that makes sense. And so we are very woo-woo. But this is just it. Like we're very woo-woo, Jen, but then we're also very grounded and very tangible, and we bring through things that are very applicable, right? But I do go into the Akashic records and I go through all of these wounds. I go through the witch wound, I go through the worthiness wound, I go through you know, because worthiness then ties into, as you were saying with the example of your client, if she didn't feel worthy for her voice to be heard, she wouldn't speak up. So, yeah, the way that I work through this is very energetically because, like we were saying in our last video, for us to be able to ascend something and then to descend that lesson and actually embody it, I work on these things energetically. Um, I think that any energetic thing that you work on, you ideally we do need a little bit of rationality because the fourth dimension, the mind, the filter, it does need to be able to rewire itself or be able to reprogram itself so that we can then embody and act on these things that we've shifted inside. But yeah, I do work on it very energetically, and then I just show up the best that I can, the more that I integrate and embody.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Because I think at the end it's the same, right? I spoke more about the end goal I have in my clients, but it's true. And I like that you brought that piece up. It's true. To get there, obviously, we gotta release, remove, unblock all of those wounds that are underneath, right? And that's for me, I work on a emotional, energetical, spiritual, physical, mental level to remove that, because that's all where it ties in. You can actually imagine that this is all standing in the way for you to really truly express your true authentic being. So once you remove all of that and release that and unblock that, it's like woof, you got so much more freedom to be yourself. And also speaking here, obviously I also haven't removed everything right now. I'm sitting here and I realize I already noticed it before we started. I started coughing a lot and I'm like, ooh, I'm scared to speak about this topic. And I feel my throat is closing in. My mind is not as clear as it usually is to receive the words that need to be spoken, because there must still be somewhere something tied in that is like, oh, that feels scary. What, we're talking about female empowerment, am I empowered? But this is why, yeah, just saying that I also still have my residues in this whole topic, and still I think the only reason why I'm here and speaking about those things at all is because I've looked at a lot of those blockages and released that in my ancestral lineage, in generational, energetical, whatever else. I mean, you gave me a pretty good session recently, so this is why I'm able to actually start speaking about it, because we don't have to remove all of our wounding before we can start doing the work. And that's really important. So I'm doing the work because that is actually going to untie more of the wounding. It's like, yeah, that's necessary, a pretty important necessary step for me. And that, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was speaking a lot to the energetic work, but obviously that embodiment is very necessary. Oh my goodness, I'm even imitating your pronunciation at this point, Jen. It is very necessary. Um, but yeah, so when we do energetic work, obviously the wound isn't completely healed. There's lots of different layers to it. And we will continue to see these layers the more that we empower ourselves, the more that we work on it. But as soon as we can identify something, release some of the blockage, and start to rewire and reprogram ourselves and actually implement what we're learning and actually use that embodiment to empower ourselves, the rest of it just comes naturally. You start to navigate these things with such ease and grace. Like, I don't know why this is coming up, but maybe it's necessary for someone to hear. I'm a Scorpio moon, so my emotional world is based on death and rebirth, right? I also have the soul specialization of transition, which is about this death and rebirth and the soul, having these expansive moments of, we're here, hello, are you tapping in with your consciousness? Come on, here we are. But yeah, these exponential experiences, these transitioning through different things, it becomes easier the more that you actually surrender, release, no expectations, but move through it, use it, empower yourself with it, embody it. I think that's basically what empowerment is for me. It's more of opening the gates towards embodiment.
Mm.
Yeah.
Love that. I love that. I'm like, this is where we should leave it, because that's like, can you repeat that sentence again? Because I think that's like that's shush.
What did I say? That embodiment is the key to empowerment?
I think you mentioned it in a different way, but this sounds even better. Embodiment is the key to empowerment. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Basically, we can just wrap it up here because that's all we've spoken about. And now we got it. Yeah, thank you so much for listening in once more. I hope we're very curious to hear where can you empower yourself a tiny bit more, and through that empower your surroundings. Because if you change yourself, you're gonna bring change into your surroundings. So where can you do that? So thank you for listening. Do you have any last words?
Oh, just thank you for listening. How can you embody? How can you embody? I'd love to hear how people believe that they can embody their empowerment.
Beautiful. Yes.